What is up, people? Let me go ahead and fix this real quick because I wasn't prepared like I'm supposed to be. There we go. Oh, didn't change. Try it again. Why doesn't the window match? There it is. Alright. So let me get in the chat, see what's up to everybody. Actually, the stream came out of nowhere. So I was actually over at 24/7 and they were talking about the sun's reflection on water. And I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I've actually never asked this question, and I think it'd be pretty cool to get an answer for this. But we know why the sun appears to drop below the horizon on sunset and vice versa of sunrise. And where I really got to thinking about it, we have the basic idea of how a flat Earth, sun, moon orbits above, I guess. Would these images happen? Here, let me show you. Kind of like the one you guys saw in the beginning, but you know, I'm not prepared, so let me go ahead and find this. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Something like this. Where did I save it at? I know. Aha. Okay, so something like this. Wait. Come ahead and save it. Well, pin a rose. Hang on. Alright, here we go. Finally, damn. So, if we're looking at something like this, and no, you guys can't see it yet because I haven't swapped over yet. See something like this, and we're seeing the sun's reflection. It's not the greatest, right? But I got to thinking, why does it look like this? Okay, hang on. Gotta go get it. Okay, another one. say something like this. Actually, I can just window capture that. That'll be actually easier. Reflect. Yeah, this will make it life so much easier for everyone. Here we go. We'll do it like this. Boom. All right. Now we can actually make a little bit more sense into what I'm trying to say. So typically we see this one, for instance. Well, you see it this way. Obviously, you can see the straight line to the observer, and then at the very end, I guess what you would say see, that's my question. Now, here's the question. See that the reflection that leads to the observer's eye? How does this happen? That would be good enough. Nope, not real. Let me see. Looking for, well, this one was pretty good. This is good enough. How does something like this happen? And I know this is actually, I don't even think this one is real. Beautiful sunset scenery, rippled. Oh, I guess it is a picture. Cool. Or it's a wallpaper. But as the sun hits the apparent horizon and the sun begins to show obstruction, that reflection goes according. So it does become smaller, smaller, and smaller. The shadow, or the reflection, I mean. But on a flat Earth, if this were the case, shouldn't the sun and the shadow disappear based on, or damn, the sun and the reflection, I apologize. The reflection becomes smaller and smaller as it goes in the distance. That's kind of the question. And I may have even worded it wrong, but let me know if I did, because I'm trying to figure it out. It doesn't make any sense, and it should. Let me go ahead and let me get this chat going in there, because this is like the third time I've slacked off on it. We have a second. All right, now we can put the chat back in there. Sorry, guys. I know some of you guys really like that chat. I don't know why. There you go. Chat is good to go again. All right, so let me get in this chat and say what's up to everybody. All right, I'll start addressing some. I know some of you guys said something in here. All right. Don't take any wooden nickels. What's up? How you doing? Paul Curran. What's up? What's up, B-Ball? I'll check out that video for sure. And thank you for the observation again. What's up, Peter Devil? How's that model going? What's up, Lori? What's up, Unpaid Phil? Let me see who else is here. What's up, Jim? What's up? What's up, DKG? I saw your channel. You seem to be pretty big. Not really sure who you are though. But what's up? What up, Marty Moose? What's up, Demonic? What's up, Sean Smith? Thank you for coming in, man. Let me see. What's up, John? Well, Rumpus trolling. Wish that was a real one. Montreal in the house. What's up, Montreal? Let me see else. I think that is it in chat for now. What's up, Mendelin Brought set? Let me see. Anybody else? Okay, so like I was saying, I was over at the 24/7 server, and they were talking about these observations of the sun and its reflection. Oh, what's up, Soul Survivor? My bad. What's up, RSC? Just got to the bottom of the chat. What's up, Fader? I just saw you guys. My bad. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it now. My phone just went off. Okay. What's up, Glenn? What's up, Hugh? Hey, what's up, man? Thought you've been a mod in here. Check your channel. You'll be good to go. All right. What's up, Trish? See you up there. I think that is it. I think I actually got everyone now. Do apologize if I miss you. What's up, Paid? So they were talking about how the sun's reflection, and I don't think they were debating whether or not it was flat Earth or globe. observation. I think they were just talking about how refraction works, I guess. I'm not sure. But I do know that a couple of them kept saying that the shape has no correlation with it. I think that's wrong. I think actually, if you look deep enough into refraction, it's based on the fact that we do live on a globe that refraction works the way it does in our atmosphere. But more importantly, I digress. Let me see. I think that's everyone. Let me see if I can get this to present. Which one is it? Oh, the sun one. All right. Trying to figure out which one I put it in. Hang on 1 second, guys. Again, like I said, I wasn't ready. I get a do-over. All right, F it. I'm going to get you guys in here because basically what I wanted to ask is, all right, basically asked it with the sun becoming smaller as it leaves our line of sight. How the hell is a convergent line and obstruction from curvature the same thing in their eyes? I need it to be explained to me because I'm just learning about it in the sense of the convergent line and our perspective and the explanations that we can attach to them to verify what we're seeing. And I'd like someone to explain it. So, ow, hit my chair. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get the meetup up so I can share a link. And I kind of caught the very tail end of Jose's, so I'm not really sure what they were talking about, but I know that second to last spacesuit looked fake as fuck. And also, I'll be answering some questions that keep getting answered lately. It's kind of weird, but it literally is the same question a dozen times a day. So I'm in the chat. I see you guys. So now don't feel like I'm ignoring you. Just tag me and I'll see you. See, kind of getting things still set up. Oh no, can't see it. Where is it? There it is. What's up, sir? How you doing? Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Not my side. Let me go ahead and try to. What's up, Sean? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, damn. If anyone knows OBS and this stupid chat, my OBS chat keeps freezing, and I don't know why. I have gone through so many options, and not one explains it. I don't know. Pretty irritating though, because I'm trying to figure it out.
You got me on that one.
Yeah, I'm confused because it keeps. I see it. It's not scrolling now. I kind of thought what it was because I'm not sure if a lot of people even notice this, but if you look at the top of your little chat box, it says top chat or live chat. Apparently, live chat is where all the other people talking is, and if you're not watching it, you don't get to see every chat that's going on. So that was a pretty big trip when I found that out. Okay. Let me see something. I'm trying to find something in the chat that I just saw. I'm trying to fix this damn chat that I don't even care about.
All right. I got my mic set up now.
See? No one's ready today.
What's going on, Chills?
Just the usual. Just hanging out. Just hanging out, being awesome.
Oh, I am happy to see you here. I'm calling you Bearded Devil because I hate trying to remember how to say your name. Anyway, do you hate when flat Earth artists say they understand perspective?
Personally, no.
Anybody else? I mean, you guys are all pretty much qualified to answer that one.
A little bit, yes, because they don't understand perspective.
Yeah,
But that's when they say they do, it's like listening to my 8-year-old tell me that he understands.
yeah, it's really confusing because, like I said, I have been hanging out at 24/7 for probably the past week and a half, 2 weeks, and there's this thing that happens where they become an expert, and then they become instantly not or accountable for anything they say. It's just weird.
Well, I mean, we all become accountable for everything we say, don't we?
They don't.
Well, if we're not, we should be held accountable. I mean, if you're saying something, you better back it up.
Fuck yeah, both sides. I think that's kind of where it needs to be. It needs to be, I'm looking for truth, or we're not, and then those are the sides that should be drawn.
I'm talking about even in day-to-day life. If you say, I don't like so and so, and I'm going to, push his nose through the back of his head next time I see him, well, you better either apologize or do it. One of the two.
Oh yeah, and the way people perceive you matters to what you say. So and the bad can come from either side of that. You walk away, think you're a pussy. You hit him in the nose, think you're an asshole. Guess what? It's life. Are you still trying to screen share, Erebus? It's like no one's talking.
No, he's sounds like he's busy at the moment. He's in listen mode. He said he might pop in once or twice, but he's got something going.
Okay. Well then, welcome. Okay, so basically, we're going to be talking about the sunrise, sunset observations. And I have a question for you. This is something I don't know, and maybe you guys know it, and we'll answer it. When the sun is shining over the ocean during the day, it has like this. It's glare, like a bunch. The reflection becomes a big glare spot, and then as the night, as the day progresses, and we start to get into sunset, the sun, that big wide glary reflection starts narrowing up. And then it as it drops to the apparent horizon, if it drops behind, say, a mountain or a building, the shadow basically rises, I guess you say. You see what I'm saying? And this is on the
shadow.
model.
The shadow lengthens.
Yeah. Well,
and the angle would cause it to rise up. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, on a flat Earth, that's not the case. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, regardless of the height they say it is, what I'm seeing is they're having to move back. The more and more they realize, the closer it is, doesn't work. So, if the sun doesn't touch the horizon and it's circling above, is that reflection in the water possible? Or would it work the same way?
I would think. Okay, first off, I've not studied optics deeply. Okay, I want to get that disclaimer out there. So I'm going with kind of my gut feeling, gut instincts, due to my understanding of other things. But I would think that as the sun is setting, as it's going down, it's lighting less of the sky proportionally. The sky is lit up due to Rayleigh scattering, which is what causes it to be blue. The blue light is bent and refracted more than red, and therefore it's scattered all over the sky. But as the sun goes down, it's lighting a proportionally lesser amount of the sky. So that would cause that glare to tighten up into that little strip that we see. So that's my thoughts on this. And again, I've not studied optics. That's just kind of my gut feeling on this.
Okay, just reading through the chat and see if anyone else had any idea of it.
Yeah.
But,
So if I'm wrong and somebody wants to correct me, please do. I mean, I want to know these things.
because I started looking it up and I just really couldn't find like anything that was definitive on it. And plus I guess I got called out by the plain truth with the observations, because I know damn well I've heard flat earth say an image with obstruction can be zoomed in and brought back full due to the atmosphere being the obstruction. And damn, that's so frustrating. And that has everything to do with this conversation. And I don't get
If an object has gone, okay, I've got a challenge set out for flat Earth proponents or globe deniers, whatever you want to call them.
Globe Deniers.
Send a boat out, 100 nautical miles. Stand on the shore with a powerful telescope, no higher than 6 feet, and try to spot that boat.
Impossible.
Absolutely.
Impossible. This is straw man
Absolutely
try.
impossible.
It's an impossibility. Impossibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in a globe, impossibility. Even in a globe in the highest point, yeah, it's just too far.
You can't zoom it back.
It's not because of the curvature. It's just too far. It's just too far, Shields. In this
Nope.
case, yeah, too far.
Well, what is
You're putting an impossible challenge.
Well, how come we can see the ISS at what 400, 300 miles away?
We're looking through just one layer of whatever the atmosphere in the top. We're not
No.
looking through the thick atmosphere near the water.
There's multiple.
You
Yeah.
all know this. I mean, let's not.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but-
but Jose's right about this
Yeah,
because
but
the
I know.
atmosphere is thicker down closer
Okay.
to the Earth.
But it's just a think tank. I
But if you
understand
put
that.
that
But put it this way:
If
if you add 100, 200, 300 miles in between our observations, isn't there now more? Because I read an article off I think it was last night or the night before. I think it was the night before, or was it yesterday? Yesterday, where it was saying that there are actually more gases in the upper atmosphere than down here.
By the way, the ISS I just checked is 254 miles in altitude.
Well, it ranges.
there,
Yeah,
There is-
but it's just when you try
there
to
is-
propose a
sorry.
challenge to look through more than 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away, and you say 100 nautical
Sure.
miles away, that's a just impossibility shield. You know it's impossible.
yeah, but
I don't think it should be impossible.
In
on
any
a-
shape, Earth. In
No,
any shape.
I think on a flat Earth it should be possible.
On a non-atmospheric Earth, I take the challenge. But
I
we
can
live on
see-
an atmospheric Earth.
I can see 48 to 56 miles. Right. Well, I was at 2,000 feet.
Yeah,
but I
you can see it on a model. Yeah, on a computer model
No,
like
no.
Slice Arcane and all that does. Oh, you can see for thousands of miles, but
No,
on an
on-
Earth here where we live, we cannot see past miles.
How far?
Past certain amount of miles. I don't know.
Oh,
it might
okay,
be 10 miles today. It might be 20 tomorrow. It might be 50 tops.
Well,
But you're not gonna
can
see 100 miles away.
can see
with a
48
P900, P1000. Or
I can see 48 to 65 miles with a shitty iPhone.
And Jay Tolan,
You got any pictures of that? I want to see it, bro. Let's break it
Jay
down.
Tolan,
You want to share your screen?
Jay Tolan posted a shot of Mount San Jacinto
Mhm.
from 120 miles away.
Yeah, but that's cool because I think this sound a lot like Earth is seriously flat. Sean G is saying he's taking some pictures with a cell phone. Let's take a little look, Sean. I'm looking forward to see it.
I would too.
I am loading it up right now.
But Jay Tolan, again,
Sweetness. Yeah.
Mount San Jacinto from 120 miles away.
was he at sea level?
He was down by the coast of Malibu, if I recall correctly. He wasn't right on sea. He wasn't right on sea level. I think he was like
It was-
10 meters up.
Yeah, it was about 50 feet. Yeah, about 50. But what about these 7,000 feet you don't see?
No, I'm just talking
Well-
about the range. I'm not talking about
Oh, okay.
the drop. Just the
Yeah,
range
and-
of 120 miles. So
Yeah,
that's
and
some proof right there that we can picture and see things 120 miles away.
Right, but over water, anything below Usually about 10 feet is really hard to get a good clear picture due to all the
This is cool,
different
Sean.
atmosphere.
What is this?
Okay, what are we looking at here?
All right, so I'll make life easier. Can I draw on this one? I think I can. Yeah, I can. All right, so this line, which is so crafted, oh, you guys can barely even see it. My bad. There you go. We'll do it this way. Right here, this line, that's the coast. That's at 48 miles. My apparent horizon
Sweet.
is about 65 miles away when I'm at 2,000 feet elevation. So in the distance realm, this is with a regular.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can see 100 miles with a telescope being possible if at the right elevation.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And a less
but-
hazy day because there are more clearer days than this. Oh, of course, yeah.
So, but what I'm saying is if I was smart enough and I had, I would be able to I should have been able to use my theodolite app, and then my horizon would have to have been level with the base of the buildings, based on the fact that there's no curvature, which is why that seems to be so far down almost, I guess you could say. I don't have my numbers on me, but I'll bring them up. But there's I don't even know why you guys can't see it, but there's a cliff in that background. In the very back, that's about 200 feet.
I can make it. Yeah, I can make it out.
Yeah, it's about 200 feet high. And when I have used my theodolite, it's horizons below that. You're looking under that. Like, so what I'm basically saying is the distance on a flat Earth, you should be able to see further away because it's not dropping. Everything's dropping on the globe from from where I'm observing it from. So there's no matter what, at 2,000 feet, Riley's criteria says there's a limit to what I can see. Well, that limit isn't because of what I can see on the ground. It's from what I can see with the visible light in atmospheric conditions.
Thank you, bro. That's cool.
So, in my opinion, I think 100 yards is 100 miles with a telescope should be more than doable, especially because you can see, or you can actually.
Oh yeah, but not
magnify
6
much
feet
more.
above the ground with that astronomy.
Yeah.
No, impossible.
As long as you get the
6
height.
foot, 10 foot, 20 foot, it's impossible.
Not.
Yeah, if you get the
No,
height,
no.
oh yeah, you can see.
If it was a flat Earth, I should be able to see 100 miles right now. My horizon would not be. At
Yeah,
65
with no
miles.
atmosphere. Yeah, not a 6 foot, not a 20 foot, not 100 foot above the water. No, unless you don't have any atmosphere.
Okay. Earlier
Think
when I
about it.
mentioned
Think about it.
when I mentioned Jay Tolan's altitude above sea level,
Mhm.
he listed it as 150 feet, so I was incorrect.
Where he's observing from.
Correct for the San Jacinto observation.
Okay. Well, I know he's on cliffs, so yeah. Hey, what's up, Hugh?
Were you
Did he say
asking
100
why the glare of
feet?
the
Yeah, it
sun?
was more. I think.
Were you asking why the glare of the sun
Go ahead,
reduces
Hugh,
at
sir.
sunrise and sun?
Well, I'm trying to figure out
Were you asking?
I'm trying to figure out if it would happen the same on a flat Earth, seeing how the sun would.
The glare. Were you asking why the glare is reduced at sunrise and sunset? Was that your question
No.
earlier on?
It was more of if we looked at the observation of the sun the way it is that possible on a flat Earth? Because
No.
we know that it would go away in the distance. It doesn't appear to fall behind the horizon. So would it be able to make that reflection? Because you know how when the sun's high up, you can see the sun maybe, but it's not that long glare, that long strip.
Well, without some sort of special pleading, the sun's always visible on a flat Earth.
The reason why there's more glare at midday than there is at sunrise and sunset is because the light's going through more atmosphere at the sunrise and sun. That filters the glare out. That's why
My
the
John on
glare-
my phone. I gotta drop, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thanks, Jose. Which actually
Catch you later, Jose.
is more evidence for a globe.
Yeah, it is.
Because on a flat Earth, you would have the same. You'd be looking through the same density of atmosphere all the time.
Also, there's the angular size problem. There's tons of problems with it. With the sun alone is a huge problem for flat Earth.
Well, that's what I'm realizing, that if you say anything that has to do above the knees, flat earthers will jump down your ass and tell you, why you gotta look up? Why you gotta look up? I had a
Yeah,
flat
well,
earther start off by telling me about space, how much they knew about space and how they knew this, knew that. And like a day later, I'm going, she's so full of shit.
well, the thing is, a good model should include all those observations. They should all fit with your model.
Yep. And the realization that a model is derived through observations and studies and stuff. It's not just made up like they keep assuming the globe model
That's
is.
right. That's right.
And not to mention, there are numerous models based on numerous observations you're trying to make, or data you're trying to collect is a better way of saying it.
Well, there's different ways to present the globe model depending on what you're trying to explain. Yeah, there is really only one model that includes comports with all the observations, which is why they keep saying, "Well, we don't have a model
Well,
because it doesn't fucking work."
there's nothing that they can use together. That
It
was
doesn't
that was
work.
like my big thing when I left Flat Earth. It was name 3 things in a system that work together that don't conflict at all. And it was 2 months ago I realized right away. I was like, man, every time we go into these different topics, if you look back to what we just got done talking about, it doesn't conflict with any system going on or any observation we made. Nothing conflicts on the globe. And they'll go, that's weird, huh? That's convenient. Yeah, you're lucky. Be happy we live on that perfect spot in space.
Well, do you remember Tiger Dan? Sean, do you remember him? Tiger Dan, do you remember him?
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's what happened, wasn't it? He tried to model out the southern hemisphere, and he realized then that this doesn't work. It can't be correct. So
Yeah.
he gave it the flat Earth.
Well, I mean, I was around when this happened, when Flat Earth said F the AE map. That was a weird situation because for years they had been saying that's our model, that's what it is.
Yeah.
One of the things that I figured out, and I even thought maybe this could be my flat Earth evidence, was the fact that if you took a map on a globe, and you flattened it out, you would have basically an AE model or AE map or a flat map, basically.
You've got a flat map of the Earth,
Yes.
not a map of the flat Earth. That's the other.
Yeah, and
double.
if you try to flip that around and make a flat Earth map or a flat Earth map onto a sphere object, it won't work.
Of course.
All right, let me see.
Okay, well, it's been a while.
Hang on,
Everyone doing?
What's this guy in the chat I wanted to answer to? He said, DKG Custom says, you people are as insane as flat earthers. You drop to their level of observations. Meanwhile, the rest of the world just moves on. Puts shit into space. With your 6,000 subs, you apparently are looking for a niche. Good luck. Have fun. The link is out there, channel.
Did he spell niche correctly, or did he spell it as he pronounces it?
I forgot already because I wasn't looking at it. I think he spelled it. No. Where the fuck did it go? It was somewhere.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
I clicked away from the chat, so I wasn't looking at it. Huh?
How's everyone doing? It's been a while. I haven't been away for ages.
Yeah, where you been?
I was on a cruise.
Well, I want to go. Actually, I want to go on a cruise, but I don't because if I want to go home, how the fuck do you go home?
The same way you got on the cruise.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
For me, that's a 20-minute taxi ride to the port. But for most people, it isn't.
Yeah, see, I like it, but at the same time, it's. Wait, someone just tried to come in. I don't know where they are.
Well, you got to enjoy doing nothing because that's what you do most of the time.
I gotta.
You got to do one at least once in your life, there, Sean. It's worth it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Well, I've been on a day cruise, kind of like the what's it called hang on.
Booze Cruise?
It was like a gambling cruise, like shit, it was years ago.
Yeah.
But it was out there for like 3 hours, and I was like, that's long enough for me. I'm out.
A 3-hour tour.
Yeah, it was. I hated it. I hated every fucking second of it.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Well, some people just don't like ships. You know.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those people. I don't want to be anywhere on a boat. Nope. 1 second. I'm trying to get my other the other meetup going. Not another meetup, but my other screen name on there, so that the troll of the ball can not be disturbing. I'm not sure. I know you guys can't hear it, but everyone in the chat can hear it, so I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that real quick.
Greetings, everyone. Good evening.
What's up, sir?
Hello, sir.
I wonder if he realizes
Howdy.
that, like, we live in 2019 in a society that no one listens to their car alarms. So, like, when he does this bell thing, it's just like a car alarm. We just ignore it.
Yeah.
Either ignore it or just go the other way around and do it this way. I hate this damn thing. No. Oh yeah, I forgot. I know exactly how to stop it. What's up, Brian? How you doing, sir?
Not too bad, just seeing what's going on.
I am in the process of making the bell stop. Once I figure that part out, we'll be good to go again. Give me 1 second. It won't take long now that I actually got what I need.
I guess Mr. Mars is active tonight.
Yeah, but like he has a life.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a troll being a troll.
Yeah, but what a thing to engage in, constantly hammering on a hangout that you're not allowed to go into.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't get why anyone would want to do that.
There I am.
The mind boggles.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna leave this one. Nope.
Was it you, Channel X, that had a talk with PMars on a Discord?
That was a while ago, yes. I absolutely...
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether that was you or not.
That was I. That
That
was
was you. I thought it was, yeah. And he contradicted himself.
just...
Destroyed his own argument. It was hilarious.
Yeah. I couldn't help it. I was just compelled to just hold his feet to the fire. He just had this... I've forgotten exactly what it was. It was a contradictory argument that just made
He
no
was saying
sense.
that we're all being controlled and we're all
That's
being
right.
manipulated.
Right.
And then you asked him how he knew this, and he mentioned, I can't remember, some author.
That was a book. It was a book that he read that said we're all being controlled. We're all being controlled.
You asked him and said, well, is the academic institute part of this control group? He said, yes.
Yes, it was. It couldn't be published in America, so they published it in Canada.
And there his argument went up in smoke before his eyes. He didn't even seem to realise.
Yeah, I remember that now. Thank you for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't remember the author's name, but it was some book he read.
No.
That's how he knows.
Yep, he read a book.
Turns out that the academia is part of it. And he's telling you can't trust all these people, and then he's reciting a source that, according to him, you can't trust.
Yes, exactly. That just. I couldn't believe I was trying to actually reason that as a. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, he nearly started crying. He was on his way to. You say I can't cite it.
I remember that now. That's funny. You should bring that up again. It's been months and months and months.
I don't know whether that was you or not. I thought it was. So
Yeah,
I was
that was I. I remember where I was outside baking in the sun while he was just having a complete tizzy trying to figure out how to get it across to me that the people are lying, and he knows because the people who are lying told him.
Yeah. It amounts to. It's hilarious.
Watertight argument there. Good one. All right.
Destroyed his own argument, and he didn't seem to understand what he'd done on it.
The other one was the we talked about this the other day. The moon rock sample in Europe turned out to be petrified rock.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know? Well, it was in the media that's lying. It's the same thing. How do you know? Why would they tell you? And the same thing again. The long distance photograph. Right? Where did you hear about the long distance photograph? They publicized it. It was in the media.
Yeah, right.
And then the Amsterdam conference that just went on, and there was media there, and they interviewed someone and put it online. So what are they trying to hide? Why would they let you have a conference? Why wouldn't they just arrest you all and put you in jail? Who would even know if they did that?
I drive me nuts, that petrified wood argument. It's obvious what happened, right?
Have they not? What they want to do is, I'll tell you what they want to do. They want to study some history, and they want to study communist China. All right. But communist China, you don't know about their dissidents because it's communist China, so they don't let you know. They're all in jail, and we don't know because they don't let you know. It's not like we know that they have some dissidents that have been mistreated. They don't tell us. So if this really was a big conspiracy, they would have dealt with Mr. Dubé about 6 years ago, and that would be that. So you think they've got this huge conspiracy going, and they can't stop these YouTubers. What? Of course they can stop you. They just ban your channel. It would go nowhere.
Hey, Sean, why not just post a link in side chat? We'll just create an alternate meet and then kill this one, and then that'll give you some time to figure out how to block the bell.
Yeah, the other thing about that petrified wood moon rock, it'd be more amazing if there was no fake moon rocks out there. There must be thousands of them.
Well, that's it. Yes. So again, we mentioned this the other night. So let's just ignore all of the samples of moon rock that are in all the labs in all around the globe. Let's just ignore all of those. Let's focus on this one incident and ignore every other piece of moon rock in all the labs. Don't whatever you do, find out where the nearest one is to you. And don't, whatever you do, go and visit there and make sure that it really is moon rock and speak to an expert. Don't do that.
It's like finding a fake Rolex and concluding that all Rolexes are fake because you found one fake.
Yeah, you bought one from a guy on the Ozcott Road.
Yeah.
Oh man, the fake Rolexes were all from China now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like the media. You can only trust this one news outlet because they said something that went along with your narrative.
Yeah. Oh, we had another one that I've steadily in my life had incidences where the media has misreported things, and we had another one. I'm in a writers group, and the media misreported. The leader of the writers group was mentioned in an article, and they inserted a quote from her that she never said in the interview. So yes, I'm well aware that the media is deceptive. I'm well aware that the media makes stuff up. Thank you. Yes, I know that. All you have to do now is prove that they are making up a lie about the shape of the Earth. Just because I have personal knowledge of when they have made stuff up does not mean that they're making everything up.
Hello.
Hello. Erebus.
There you go. You guys got an echo. Hang on.
Let me see.
Erebus, how's that flat Earth model coming?
I still gotta paint the damn dome.
That's so awkward.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was amusing. Oh, you can't rename yourself, can you?
Oh, in here? No, you can't.
You can rename yourself in Zoom. We had a absolutely hilarious time renaming ourselves the other night.
I don't know why. I can't. I just don't. Zoom is okay, but it's
No, you can't do that.
not fun. Seriously, I like.
Oh, hey, Sean. Is Sean still in here?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think he's trying to deal with
Yeah,
And
he's
miscreant.
trying to deal with P Mars, I think.
Hey, Sean, just
no,
just
I'm
create
here.
another meet. Kill this one.
Can you still hear the bell?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Oh, I
Oh, no,
can't.
okay. No, the watch page.
Stick to, yeah, stick to one.
All right, well, I'll just start a new one. Hang on, give me a second.
Wow.
Yeah, you see it. Oh, it's not. You guys aren't even on the watch page. All right. So the new hangout is in the chat. Hey, oh, that's fine. Hey guys. Just so you guys know, I didn't realize that I was muted. The new link is in the little art in our chat right here. Thanks, sir. I'm going to get rid of this one now. And there we are. We're good to go now. I know we're gonna change my audio back. Oh, there we go. Can you guys hear me? Oh, there we go. Good to go. We are officially P Mars proof. There we go. No, we're on YouTube. Or they can hear you, but they can't see you yet. I gotta change my audio. I gotta change some couple things real quick, but yeah, we're still live.
I actually really enjoy when
now we're back to normal.
when they say something. Yeah, I enjoy when they say you don't know how vision works.
And
or,
if anybody in
you
the chat wants to get in here, the link will be in the bunker. I'm putting it in there in about 1 minute. It'll be in the bunker.
Alrighty then.
Now, Eris, you were saying something. You want to go finish?
Oh, yeah, I was answering that
I
question.
can't hear
about
anything.
Can you hear me?
God damn it. My settings are messed up again.
He can't hear us.
Hang on. You guys are talking. I want to be involved.
Sean, can you hear me?
Hang on.
Sean, you smell of cheese.
There you go. Nah, I can hear you guys again.
Your mother is a hamster. Oh, what? Sorry, never mind.
So?
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberry.
I step away for 1 minute and everyone's gone. I thought they were trying to tell.
Sorry,
Hey,
Holly.
Did anyone hear Flat Earth Data accused Brenda of lying because she said water is not blue?
Flat Earth Data is by far the biggest troll.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was involved in that shit show, unfortunately.
Did that happen today? I may have to watch that.
Yeah. Oh man, it was terrible.
Yeah, he came in hot, calling everybody retards, and I told him I'd come down both boot heels in the middle of his back if he did that again.
We have to remember,
Yeah.
Flat Earth Dave is the guy who came in and tried to tell Dean how how Blender would work in a certain situation. Brought up a map, and then I was like, "See, solar and lunar eclipses can't work." It turns out that Data had got the size of every body wrong, the distance between the bodies wrong, the angle at which the bodies are aligned wrong, and in general, it just done everything about it wrong, and then claimed it didn't work. So therefore, the Earth was flat. It's like, well, you put shit in, you're gonna get shit out.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, he came in. He came in saying he was going to prove everything, and basically started off with saying that he was at a 6 foot observer height, and then added in that he was 6 feet above sea level. So completely debunked himself on that one. But Rumpus came in, and Rumpus couldn't let it go. Couldn't let him present it, and it just went downhill from there.
Yeah, Rumpus should have kept his mouth shut and just let him get to the end and then go back and tell him where he'd gone wrong.
Yeah, I heard the end of that, and I didn't hear anything. I heard basically when Jose said it needed to calm down, and then he was going to let everyone take over. Rumpus is an asshole.
No, he's not. He's just not completely socialized.
He's not. Well,
He's an asshole.
he's on our side, so we let things go a little bit. But
No, he's still got to be held to certain standards, and he and
Yes.
I actually chatted for a while after, everything shut down, and it was just me and him in the meet. So we had an exchange, and I think it was productive.
I'll say this: it's easier to cool a fanatic than warm up a corpse.
Touche, mon frere.
My bad. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with this chat. I'm not really sure who the hell. I don't really care. Dan Waterman, kiss my ass. But
Dan was still on Jose's the other day. Well, I mean, this is a couple weeks ago now. Oh, no, it's about a week ago now. Talking that same shit that the observer height on the Salton Sea was 18 inches on that spotter cam instead of the actual recording cam at 4.5 feet.
well, that's the thing. He keeps, like, every time I've heard him go on Jose's, I'm like, oh yeah, here he comes. He's name dropping. And I realized real quick, like, that's how he rolls. He has to start conflicts with people to become relevant in a circle. And this time it didn't work. And it's funny that he keeps bouncing from different servers or different YouTube channels, and everyone keeps saying the same shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Seriously, I have a dozen flat earthers who say he was not even close to those experiments. And one time he told us himself he was a cook. He wasn't part of the experiments. He was the cook there.
Or that he had touched the equipment.
Maybe someone else's, but not his.
He also claims that Nathan Thompson was on both sides of the experiment simultaneously.
Yep. He keeps going, "To Nathans. Congratulations."
Wait, so we have quantumly entangled Nathan Thompsons? Holy shit.
Yeah, it sounds horrifying, doesn't it?
I think it's people fucking with me, but do you guys hear a loud pitched squeal?
I do hear something faintly, yes.
Tell me if you
Yeah,
hear it
I'll-
loud. Tell me if it gets loud.
I don't hear it in here, but I hear it on the watch page sometimes when you speak, Sean.
Check right
Yep.
now. Do you hear it now?
No.
I'm an old man. I don't hear shit.
I think it
I'm
may be
actually
my
on my
volume control.
computer more to play, so I can't pull up the watch page easily.
It should, like, if anyone's listening and it's catching up right now, it's let me know if it's doing it right now, because I kind of hear a pitch in my ear, but it's my volume control for my headsets. I turned it down enough so I don't hear it right now, so I wanted to see if that's what it was. Because I'm wondering if it's picking it up from my headphones when I'm leaning up against the mic, when I'm leaning towards my mic. Yeah, Curtis, let me know if it stops doing it while I'm talking in a minute. As it catches up, we'll figure this out because I think there's already a good lag behind.
Could be a little reverb.
Which is the other stuff I got to learn on Voice Potato. If you don't hear it now, then I know exactly what it is, and I apologize. It's my headphone watch. Everyone in the chat, if you hear it right now, let me know. Right now, they're probably going to hear it loud. And if they do, I know exactly what it is. I know how to stop it. There we go. I have to be more hands-on with my controls now that I see what's going on. All right, so here we go. Let me see. Own position. I don't know the shape of the Earth, but I believe Earth is stationary. It's not. I don't get that. What's the geostationary what is it? Fucking geocentrics. Yeah. What is
Even then, geocentric doesn't necessarily mean that the Earth doesn't spin.
It doesn't?
No,
Not necessarily.
not at all. It just means that everything is circling the Earth, not that the Earth does not move.
Ah.
Everything could still have spin in addition to the Earth spinning in a geocentric model.
What would be
Yeah,
the
geocentric just means Earth is in the middle of everything.
okay. Then
Thus, geo meaning Earth, centric meaning in the middle.
I had this once. We have a geocentric model. Flat Earthers have an egocentric model.
oh, big time.
I thought that's cute. That really is, actually. It really is. I thought that was quite appropriate.
Or it's Pete Shea to say, geo and ego have the same number of letters, and they're
Therefore.
the same letters.
That's now 2 times someone said his name in my stream in a month.
Don't.
So if you do it again, I'm pretty sure he'll show up. Please.
No, he's already told you that he's never coming back to your stream because you called him something that really wasn't all that bad on stream, and then told him to leave and kicked him.
I'd probably call him a fucking pussy or something that had to do with him whining about having a discussion with Sasha that time. That was about around the time when he
Dear, what
took
do we
off.
say to Sasha?
So, and by the way, if you're listening, Sasha, you stole me a LIGO presentation, damn it.
Oh, which Sasha are we talking about there? Male or female?
Male, the kid that
Oh,
was
that's
comes on
Sasha.
here?
Yeah.
He just recently went to LIGO and he's
Really?
gonna do a presentation
I haven't,
on here about it, but correlating time is kind of difficult right now.
Very, very bright kid. Very
yeah.
sharp kid.
Yeah,
And Pete thought he was a girl. Remember,
were
Pete
you
thought he was a
around?
girl. Remember that?
Were you around when the kid handled him?
Yes.
Oh, it was so
Yes.
beautiful.
Absolutely owned him, as they say.
Pete has not been back since.
No. Oh, really?
Yep, not once.
Yeah. No, it was utter destruction.
Yeah.
Pete got real hurt cushy about it.
Oh, big time. Oh, trust me. The emails I got from Pete, I wouldn't even share them. That's how fucking irate he was about that situation. He played a good part though when he was on air.
It was a while before we managed to get it through to him that actually Sasha was a boy.
Well, that's because he's already has issues. Well, I also noticed that Pete was heavily drinking during this time.
Okay, that would do it.
And I'm talking more than the normal Pete. Because I started noticing, why is he eyes closed all the fucking time?
Yeah.
Oh shit, he's drinking a lot.
He did a live stream and I caught the beginning of it. I came back about 6 hours later. He was still there, basically lit by candlelight or maybe his laptop. And there was 2 people in the live stream, nobody in the chat, and he was just he was still talking. He must have been on. I'm thinking he may have been on something.
Well, yeah, probably he's fucking Pete. But I used to do 8-hour streams all the time. But not my streams, but I'd be on other people's panels, and it just ended up lasting fucking forever. Then Poncho Pete came around, and motherfuckers were staying online for days.
A couple of days ago, I was in here for in total 8 hours, and I went for a walk and I was chatting. I mentioned this the other night. I went for a walk and we were chatting, and I got to the point where my body wouldn't let me walk anymore, and I realized I'd walked 9.5 miles.
Damn.
So finally, my body just said, "Go home. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Stop
That's
walking."
The best part about that is I can't. There's no way I can be on Discord and on my phone at the same time. It gets way too frustrating.
Oh, all right. So you can't do something like that. Oh, yeah, I could do that. It's just, yeah, it was great. It was great. We had a blast.
Who's it? I'm so. Deadheads. They didn't say heliocentric meant center of everything. I don't know. These new people in my chat confuse me sometimes.
Yeah. A lot of times when we say heliocentrism is the way to go, we're referring to that's locally, like solar system. If we wanted to be very specific, we'd say universe is baryocentric, and that we can't actually see where the baryocenter is.
Right.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay. That was interesting.
Or rather, can't necessarily see it. We may have it somewhere within our visual sight and just not be aware of it because we are unable to see past our galactic horizon. Our universal horizon.
What's crazy to me is that we just recently were able to see outside of our galaxy. Not like yesterday, but fairly recently.
Developing the optics to actually look out that far, yeah.
Okay, so that's only referring to looking out there from Earth, not with technology, tools, basically.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to pick up what you're saying there, Sean. Are you saying with just new technology, how everything's advanced so much that we can actually see further, or are you saying the tools have gotten more advanced? I'm not really sure.
Well, kind of both. We got more advanced, and the tools we created got more advanced, so we could see further. But I know, what was it? Damn, it had to have been 2010-ish, 14-ish. That I guess astronomers or amateur astronomers, thank you, Cam, just was able to appear out the galaxy itself. And then this, what was it? I think, actually, I don't remember the numbers, but they were making it seem like to leave the galaxy like that is far.
And it was a lot easier to see out of one side of the galaxy for us than it was to actually see things that are in the other side of the galaxy.
Say again?
It's actually easier to look out of the arm that we're in into another galaxy at times than it is to see something in our own galaxy that happens to be across the main body of it.
Oh, because just all the interaction of crap going on.
Yeah, there's so much shit in the way.
I'm trying to remember who I was talking about. They were talking about us having two suns. What the fuck was it called?
Oh, Q's idea of binary stars.
Yeah.
Everything has a binary pair.
Yeah. I thought that was crazy when I heard it, but I guess flat earthers can say you're correct in the fact that we're not taught about the multiple galaxies and multiple stuff in just our galaxy alone that orbits something. And what was it? I think it was like 100, 200 counted objects, I guess you would call them, are in our vicinity, I guess you would say, with like these crazy, completely different type orbits than we have. And I guess it would be, how could they find out if, someone's going to smash into us? Do we have to actually see that shit? I mean, I know we have to see it, but I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just getting really confused on the fact that the way astronomy works, yet it's not considered a real science, or I guess it's not
Wait,
considered a method or whatnot.
Are you talking about like, excuse me, like the Andromeda Galaxy plowing into the Milky Way?
Yeah,
Is that
shit
what
like
you-
that.
Well, it's the observed motion of that galaxy is bringing it towards us, and in time, it's gonna hit.
Yeah, but with with dark matter, dark energy coming up into the mix, I bet it's a better way of saying it.
Sean, I have to bow out. I may be back. If not, have a great night. If I'm back, I'll see you in a few.
Yep.
Thanks.
Just in case, I'll be on tomorrow too.
Oh, okay, cool.
It'll be a
Catch
lot
you later,
earlier.
X.
See you, X.
Thank you.
Later.
Well, I mean, that's only going off of the observations that we have at this moment. We're still not even sure how the galaxies actually, whether or not they have their own patterns or something like that. We can only see what we can only observe. Well, what we've observed so far.
Yep, and that's the nature of science.
Our current best guess is that the galaxies are not in a orbit around something necessarily, even though their masses can interact and cause deflections.
Well, how do you? Okay, so I know a lot of people don't believe in Big Bang, and there are definitely alternatives. I was reading about them that don't really fit, but close. Let's see. Well, how do you ask the question? How do they? Okay, so how do they know the light from the Big Bang is from the Big Bang if we were created in lieu of, and it taking that long for us to get to where we are now with expansion? How are we traveling faster than the speed of light then? How is it catching up to us now?
Well, first off, the Big Bang didn't happen in a particular place. It happened everywhere. The Big Bang refers to an expansion or inflation, not just of stuff, but also space itself.
Yes, because technically we are not traveling faster than the speed of light. The space between everything is being generated faster than the speed of light. Or in some cases, or in some areas, it can be perceived as, or in some cases, with these speeds, things are already moving, with space being generated between them as a portion of what is going on. It can be perceived that things are moving faster than the speed of light. Or as King Crocoduck likes to say, being redshifted into oblivion.
In the chat, Adam was asking if you're saying that all galaxies aren't in orbit around a singular thing, or that the singular galaxies aren't in orbit around something.
We don't know yet.
But you're referring to whether or not there's a black hole, basically, right?
Oh no, I was referring whether or not there's actually some sort of superstructure out in the universe that the galaxies are actually in an elliptical orbit around something in the middle. It's impossible. It's impossible to know. Our best estimate right now is that galaxies are not doing that.
Yeah, and that's not saying that the center of the universe could be one giant black hole. We just don't know at this point.
Yeah. It just happens to be what we observe in galaxies, so they've added to it, basically.
Just imagine the mass.
Oh, yeah, that would be huge.
Huge.
What was it? Not the Dyson? What is it called? Dyson
Sphere.
Yeah. They think they've seen that. Or, no, wait, that's a bad way of saying that.
No. There's the weirdest star. I saw a discussion group on this or a presentation, and that's just one of the many things that people have been putting forth as conjectures. As to why the star is so variable. Also, in both YouTube chat and side chat, I've posted a video link to a video that discusses faster than light effects, and it's pretty informative by a channel called Because Science. Pretty funny stuff over there, but also very descriptive, and I highly recommend that channel.
Oh, definitely check it out.
But he discusses in this video how things can happen, in quotes, faster than light. For example, if you had a laser pointer,
the speed of light.
Pretty powerful one, and you turned it on, pointed it to the left side, just to the left of the moon, and then quickly flicked it over just to the right of the moon, technically that beam would be shooting across the moon faster than the speed of light. And he discusses how that's not really breaking any of the laws. So it's a pretty fascinating presentation.
That would have something to do with the movement, well, two movements basically, the light moving one way and then moving to the right or left.
Well, I don't recall the particulars. It's been a while since I saw it, but the topic stuck in my mind, and which is why I was able to pull it up while it's still in context in the conversation.
The way I would put it is individual photons are never moving faster than the speed of light within that beam. The dot is moving faster than the speed of light, but it's just an apparent thing caused by individual photons arriving, so actually no rules are broken.
Well, it's he also discusses basically if you had a gigantic pair of scissors and you squeeze them together so the blades came together. If they were large enough and you squeeze that handle fast enough, the meeting point of that pair of scissors would go faster than the speed of light from the pivot point out to the tip.
I'm not sure that that's the case because you would still have the issue of having to accelerate that mass.
Well, it's a hypothetical situation. I mean, it's purely a thought experiment.
Okay, yeah.
And I if I recall correctly, he does actually address that move that amount of mass. Yeah, it ain't happening.
Okay. Yeah, it's like whenever people are like, if I have a 1 light year long pole and I push it, it's like, well, you're forgetting that you're forgetting that everything would have to move in such a way to where it would have to be uncompressible. It would have to have no ability to wobble. It would have to be a perfectly impossible structure. So no matter how hard you push it, it would never actually go instantaneously. It would still have to travel lower than light speed if you pushed it.
I like that term, perfectly impossible.
Yes, very much so with the lunar eclipse on a flat Earth.
Any eclipse on planet.
I mean, hell, you don't even have to go to the eclipses. You can just go to the South Pole and look at the stars.
I'm going to work out the weight of a 1 light year long, 1 inch diameter rod made of iron. Just because.
Perfectly rigid. That's what the word I was looking for. It'd have to be incompressible and perfectly rigid.
How many feet are in a light year?
I don't know if I could add that up real quick. Could look it up.
I was sitting there going like, how much does a 1 foot rod of you said 1 inch steel?
Yeah, 1 inch iron, and I actually did a quick conversion of light years to feet, and that comes up to approximately 3.1039141 times 10 to the 16 feet.
Okay.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, I'm using an app called Frank that allows you to do some pretty funky calculations. To do this, I just did light year, right arrow, foot. Boom. There's my answer.
All you gotta do is find out how much 1 foot, 1 inch in diameter rod is,
You got it, Slim.
and then that, and it would be whoa.
The volume of that iron would be ludicrous.
Yes, it would.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, cylinder. So
I don't think there would be anything that would be rigid enough to be able to withstand that, because iron would flex too much.
yeah, it's impossible, but it's an interesting thought experiment. Or it's an interesting idea to look at how impossible it would be, I guess I should say.
And then what are you pushing against? Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everything at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say you would take the everything.
Let's see. Where is... Oh, I think I did that calculation. Oh, I'm still on the right path.
That old joke, the 10-foot poles joke just suddenly got a little bit larger.
Yeah.
Oh, the volume of the iron rod is in the trillions. 677 trillion
Yeah.
units of iron.
Now you did that in feet, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, if you could, if you want to go ahead and post that in side chat, I'll go ahead and plug it into my calc.
And I'd like to
Oh,
say
man.
congrats to
Give me
Lori.
just a moment. I'm working on my
for,
phone. My computer decided that
reaching
it's way too hot all the time, so I've got it torn apart, and I've got everything
for
cooling
reaching
down and checking to see
a liar
if my
rank.
processors are burned or not.
Congratulations, Glover.
Oh, it didn't take them. It didn't bring the pi over with it. Just add a times pi to the end of that.
Alrighty.
That's a big boost to the economy too.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Trying to figure out why we're talking about history books in the side chat here.
Dorks. I just realized I have a 2-minute lag in my fucking stream. I hate this damn OBS.
Alrighty. I've got the calculation done. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
Yep.
It looks like it would weigh 3.081881, and I'm rounding off there, times 10 to the 15th pounds.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, excuse me, that's ounces. Sorry. That's ounces.
Okay.
Still, it's a freaking lot.
Well, you divide that by 16, it doesn't get much smaller, honestly.
All right, I just posted that result in side chat. So if anybody wants that, you can copy it. Now you know how long a 1-inch diameter or 1-inch radius, 1 light year long rod of iron would weigh.
I'd sell it.
I'm just trying to think, the mass of that rod, you couldn't even bring it close to Earth. You cause a bit of a problem. So what's all going on in everyone's world tonight?
Just painting away.
Yep. Oh. That's it?
Yeah,
Only one person doing something?
Sean's helping his son with a project. Good for him.
Yeah. No, I can't fault him there. Can't tell you how many times I was a kid, I waited at the last second, had my parents help me to no end on a project.
Yeah, when I help my son, right now it's not really projects for school, it's more projects for him and I to do. We'll go out to the ocean and just look up at the stars and stuff like that, watch the sunrise and just describe stuff, the different clouds and stuff. So he enjoys it. It's little experiments for him, see what knowledge he can pick up.
Yeah. I like to take my 3-year-old out places and let her tell me things. And it's like, okay, you're pretty close, but that's not...
It's amazing what they come up with.
She's really into dragons lately. Haven't figured that one out yet. We don't even watch shows that have dragons in it. I don't know where she found out about dragons.
Just wait till the Pokemon stage.
Oh man, I was hoping we could skip that stage because her world is dragons and ponies currently. Can't imagine her when she discovers that Pikachu's a thing.
Yeah. The at least with the dragons and ponies, there's some stuff you can look up and things like that. When it comes to the Pikachu and stuff, you're going to be completely lost because you have no knowledge of it.
Yeah, that's it. We were actually going to try to watch Detective Pikachu with her until me and Patty decided to look at it ourselves, and that I'm pretty sure that movie would scar her for life.
Yeah, yeah, she's a little young to watch that with. Um, I'd say at this point, just stick with the classics. All the all the animations and stuff. Disney's are always good.
Oh yeah, trust me, we're on that train. If I have to watch Lilo and Stitch one more time, I'll be able to repeat it entirely from memory, much like I can basketball.
Or old school.
Old school. That's a movie I need to see again. I got to check if that's on Netflix still. And Chills is just going away in this little sidebar over here, man. That is a lot of kilograms.
All right, I'm back. Hang on.
That's a lot of numbers to type.
My apologies, guys. So what have I rolled into?
Oh, not much. We were just talking about kids.
Okay. Context.
What kind of project? What kind of projects you working on?
It's like a history one, I guess. To do, I don't know. I didn't even help him. He just makes me do things. I have to ask him questions. I'm still stupid. It's not that. I just realized where we live now. That's it. It's like one of those rubber band type. What does this reaction happen and all that type shit?
Oh, if you stretch the rubber band out and things like that.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, that's actually a good one to get started on. That's like the beginning to physics almost.
Well, good, because I need that one. Still on the quest to learn, taking a very long time.
Yeah. Sean, were you here when we got the final value for the volume and then the weight of a one light year long pole?
No.
Yeah, so that also got calculated while you were gone. It would weigh approximately 1.92618 to the 14th pounds times 10 to the 14th pounds. So one light year pole would weigh more than the Earth.
Damn.
I'm just imagining this 1-inch pole that's just continually falling through the earth.
Oh, I'm incorrect. It would weigh half of the Earth. My bad. Had to double check on this. Like, wait a second. Occasionally, I say shit wrong too.
No, you're not allowed to. You're fired.
Now here's a question. Okay, so if you had that bar, now the center of that mass would be attracted to the center of the mass of the Earth. Would it turn the bar, or would the bar continue to go straight towards the Earth?
With iron, the damn thing would start to collapse if you had one side of it on Earth. The only problem is, what all did it pass by? Is it close enough to Jupiter to where its part was going to slam into Jupiter as well?
These are the questions I think about when I'm taking a shit.
Would it provide Jupiter with that little bit of mass it needs to complete its path to starhood?
To the event horizon.
Be a jump start.
I want to see something. I have a fun idea. I want to try something. But I got to see if you guys can hear first.
You know, I just thought of something.
Oh.
$30. Okay. Yeah, that rod would be roughly 1/3 of the mass of the sun. So no, it would not push it over the top to uh, do funky sun tricks.
Funky sun tricks.
Yeah, like blowing up or collapsing or doing other interesting things that would kill us.
Like everything possible. I was just watching a what if type space thing. You were talking about supernovas and some other crap.
I was what was I watching? I was reading something the other day. I'll have to find it again. It's a physics professor that takes absurd thought experiments or hypotheticals and applies the math to it. One of them was what would happen if a pitcher threw a baseball at the speed of light? And he describes it in graphic detail, and it's about one of the funniest things I've ever written. And it ends with total devastation of the Earth. And the best part is, it happens so fast that the pitcher, who is literally an infinitesimally small distance away from the ball that started it all, was destroyed so fast he never knew that he doomed a good portion of the solar system.
Looking through my notes. I'm trying to find something. Fuck. And again, I apologize for not being more prepared because I wasn't planning on being online. But then I had to when I heard that. Hang on.
Yeah, going back to the beginning of the show, did we ever figure out if you got the answer for your question about the sun?
If I remember correctly, I think Unpaid Chill explained how no wait, I don't think I did. I think Unpaid Chill assumed I was thinking flat Earth, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I know it didn't get
What's the same question?
It didn't get answered, but it was explained. But it was if I remember correctly, it was only to explain on one side. I'm looking at my another rewind thing. Yeah, so basically it was. Oh no. Dead air.
What happened?
I'm trying to figure. I keep fucking clicking things off on my OBS that I didn't mean to. So for a second I had no audio. For another second I thought I had lost one of the browsers. Yeah, I lost. Hang on. Everything's flashing. Stop flashing. I see. Hey, talk real quick.
I'm just reading through something that Charlie said in the chat. I don't think the difference between what Shill said and what he said is that. Whoa, wow, what happened here? Something's crazy. I may have made a mistake in something I gave Shills. I'm double checking. Oh, XKCD. Thank you, Barney. Good deal, man.
Wait, what happened?
That's the physics professor. Oh no, it's an ex-NASA engineer who answers a lot of ridiculous hypotheticals, like the baseball player throwing a ball at the speed of light.
What happens?
Well, essentially, a good portion of the solar system goes bye-bye, and it happened so fast that the guy who threw the ball, even though he's just a ludicrously small distance away from the ball, was destroyed before he realized he doomed everything. Yeah. Also, Barney, get your ass in here. I miss you.
All right. Someone pick a topic. Go ahead, any topic. Let's like poker.
I'm still trying to figure out what your son question was.
It was basically, we kind of went through an idea that the flat Earth sun wouldn't touch the horizon at all in that situation, on a sunset situation.
Mm-hmm.
So would the glare during sunset, how it usually has that long strip of glare, then once the sun meets the horizon, that glare goes all the way out to the ocean to it, apparently. Would it be possible on flat Earth? Because the sun's supposed to be moving away and getting smaller or something, but
It depends on whose flat Earth you use.
exactly.
Like if you use Jaron's bizarre atmospheric dome, that also doesn't make any sense. No, not at all. If you use free-minded, well, no, not free-minded. Whoever it was talking to free-minded, and that other dude about light only being able to travel 4,000 miles.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Then on his flat Earth,
Geo love.
yeah, on his model that wouldn't work at all. That couldn't work. It just that's such a variable question. Let's see. There's no space-time on flat Earth, says Jose.
All right, where's the meetup? I can't find it. There it is. What's up, Barney?
Hello, hello.
There you are, Barn.
What's up, sir?
Good morning.
Morning,
Just
Barney.
passing through to say that I can't really join because I'm in Tuscany.
Oh,
My
nice.
kids to Gardaland.
What the hell are you doing there?
I'm taking my kids to Gardaland to an amusement park.
What's it called?
Gardaland.
Gargoland?
Garda.
Gardaland.
Gardaland. It's
Still not as cool as an American. Six Flags.
it's something like Six Flags, yeah.
Ah.
Swing by and pick me up, Barney.
Where are you at?
Here.
Florida.
Florida, okay. On my way.
Oh, nice. 7 roller coasters. Way to go. That's not bad. A suspended looping coaster, a sit-down steel coaster, wing coaster, another sit-down, a diving coaster. Nice.
Yeah, they even have beer coasters.
Well, yeah, but they even have those at Disney. The wave of the Atlantic. Oh, man. Y'all going to get wet?
I am not going to do shit. I'm going to watch my kids do it.
Careful where you watch from, then.
No. It's too fucking early in the morning.
What time is it over there,
You gotta
Barney?
force yourself out of bed, Barney.
7 a.m. Oh, 8 a.m.
Oh, that's not bad at all, man. Let's see, I'm up at
No, it's
4:30
not.
most days.
It's not. I thought it was earlier.
Shit,
I'm just having my morning
it's
coffee.
11
I
o'clock
just
at
woke-
night here, and it's too early for me. Figure that one out.
It's 2
Anyways,
a.m. here.
I just joined to explain why I can't join.
Thank you, Barney.
Hey. See, I'm considerate.
You felt like you were forced to. All right, guys. You know what I'm gonna do?
About
You're
to call
gonna-
it because we're quiet.
Yeah, everyone's boring the shit out of me because I'm boring the shit out of you guys.
Well, let's get a topic happening.
It's either that or I'm gonna go because my question wasn't answered, but it's out there, so my job here is done. and in the chat, MG Pillbox, don't poor Globers. No. I can end here and just be done, and I go to bed. It won't matter. I don't have to be on here.
Well, you do have an answer to your question. It's just there is multiple answers to your question. Because yes in certain aspects and no in other aspects.
When would the sun? When would you say the sun ever, changed by even a quarter of a degree or percent? I'm sorry.
You mean angular size?
Yeah. Like, so when the flat Earth sunset, quote unquote, happens, like, we should see it just become a dot. It's just a thin line. You would think.
Not only should we see it become a dot, we should see it turn away from us as a small dot that never goes down.
Yeah, it just continues to go further and further away.
Until it disappears.
Yep.
No, it would swerve to the north.
Oh yeah, well yeah, it would always. Well, if you were facing south, and the way I understand it, you'd be looking over your right shoulder during sunset.
Right. But for some reason, we don't see that.
At all. And even
It could be because the Earth's not fucking flat.
Well, yeah, that's big one. One of the biggest issues is that when a flat earther does the sun observations or how the sun works type tests, you realize how they always put this camera flush on the flush on the table, and the quote unquote source, the sun, it's always moving to and from the observer. It never travels in a straight line, especially over our heads to us.
Well, there's also the magic lampshade that has to be over the sun. You know, the one that changes shape so that we get different seasons. You know, how the hell does that supposed to work? I mean, you know, what's up with that?
You're going too far. Stay at one. Stay at one problem. Can't add to it.
Well, you know, it's obvious that on a flat Earth, the sun would never set. Period. As it's described with the sun, you know, doing a circle overhead, it's not going to disappear.
Yeah.
So they've got to come up with some other kind of bullshit mechanic to explain why there's sunset some places and sunrise in the others, and noon and midnight elsewhere.
I think Arwen has my favorite ad hoc mechanic
is that the sun isn't really there. It's just the apparent direction that light comes from, and so it can just shut itself off.
Oh, that's that bullshit that because the light takes a certain amount of time to reach our eyes, that we're looking at the apparent side.
And we're looking at an apparition that we call the sun. I hate that nonsense. It's like it has measurable mass. We have the ability to range it. we know that it's a physical object. Stop with the nonsense.
Well, my favorite part about it is with their observations, the sun and the moon. I've heard, it started at 3,000. They were sure it was 3,000 miles above. Now it's like 12. Some I've heard 25. At least they're acknowledging altitude now.
What I typically get is I don't know. That's what I've heard most of the time. I don't know where it's at, but I know it's not there.
Yeah, well, that's the one I hear too.
If you don't know where it's at, then how do you know it's not there?
It's like, what evidence do you have that it's not there?
Reasons.
That's my favorite answer. It doesn't satisfy a 3-year-old. Yeah, it doesn't satisfy a 3-year-old. It certainly doesn't satisfy an adult. Although I'll go back to talking about her for a second. She was asking me why questions the other day, and we got stuck in a tunnel of them. So eventually, little girl, she just says why one more time. And I said, well, she said why? I was like, well, because I've reached the. I said, oh no. She said, how do you know that? I said, well, I've reached the end of both my epistemology and ontological reasoning behind this. And she said, okay.
How old is she?
Well, we don't know what the sun is.
She's 3, so she had no idea what I said, but she didn't know how to question it.
My youngest once asked me, why are babies fat? And so I went into this long diatribe about. I started rumpusing. I went into this long diatribe about thermodynamics and volume versus surface area, and on and on and on. And I realized about 20 minutes had gone by, and I looked up from the paper at my daughter, and her eyes were just glazed over. She was totally checked out. And so I kind of moved a little bit to get her attention, and she looked at me, and I said, that's why babies are fat. So that became kind of a running joke with us. Anytime we were experiencing something that had gone on far too long, we just look at each other and say, and that's why babies are fat.
That's why it's hard for me to do homework with my son, because he'll bring out the core material, and I'm like, I don't understand why you guys are doing this. This is taking too long. Let's simplify this. And then we start going over different maths, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, you can do this, and you can make this into an angle, and you can do this, and he's checked out like probably about 15 minutes before that.
Are you doing Morse code, Brian?
Oh, is my phone picking up my text inputs?
Yeah, I'm hearing a thrumming.
I'll stop doing that then. Life was so much easier when my computer didn't decide to shit the bed.
Either stop whatever you're doing or let us watch. One of the two.
What the hell?
What?
And I'm checking out.
And with that, guys, I think I will leave you guys with this. A while ago, I gave you guys the quote of someone I know that rattlesnakes' venom was in their tails. I'm not sure if you remember that.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, there's more.
All right,
Wait,
I won't dox that
wait,
person this time.
wait,
Tomorrow.
what?
Okay, so tomorrow I'm gonna go live, and I promise you guys, everyone in the chat and listening at this moment, still, I don't know why. Tomorrow my stream will be much more information packed and ready for. But tomorrow, I want to go over some. I got like a list now of 3 people in my life that I could just write a book of stupidity about, and they're not even flat earthers. It's just random shit they say.
Oh yeah, we all have those friends.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, when asked you, and mind you, this is a grown woman. When asked you if rattlesnakes carry poison in their rattlers, then we'll talk. Or if snakes have
Yeah.
tails.
Or what
Snakes
have
are
tails?
nothing.
Snakes
Snakes
have
are nothing
tails.
but tail with a head.
Yeah, that's what I explained, and I also even rattled off a couple names of snakes I had, like red tail boa, stuff like that. It just doesn't clue them in.
Now, see, something that's always confused me is what's the difference between a snake and a legless lizard?
The snakes,
Evolutionary history.
yeah, they have the remnants of the little.
I mean, visually, there's really no difference, so to speak.
You can see the little pinch marks on where its arms and legs would be.
Well,
Snakes don't have arms.
Well, the little thingamajiggers when they were lizards.
Well,
They're
and
nubbins.
usually the snakes have a different shaped head or something like that. The lizards are usually a little bit more sleek, and their armor is usually less because they can run.
Because they have legs.
And they sell insurance.
And talk on flat Earth. Anyway, I had to add that one in. What the hell is going on in my freaking chat? It's like 3 people just yelling at each other.
Well, that's par for the course, isn't it? Who's yelling at who?
Who cares? No, it's Dark Seed. He's in there. Deadhead. He's been arguing the whole
Yeah,
time.
earlier, some epic dodo was trying to say that Iran and Iraq were part of Africa.
Jesus
Wait,
Christ.
what?
Yeah, I said earlier, some epic dodo was trying to say that Iran and Iraq are part of Africa.
Oh, right. Please tell me you remember who said that.
I don't recall. It was somebody that was horribly confused about geography.
Dark Seed. Flat Earthers, this is all they got. Ad homs and logical fallacies. The oxygen thieves.
Why do Christians believe that they should handle poisonous snakes? What the hell?
Oh, it's a sub branch of very cultish Christians that's based off of saying of Christ that the venom of a serpent shall not harm a true believer or something like that.
Yeah, no poison will kill them, and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah, they're pretty freaky.
And apparently, it was opinionated as whole that said that about Iran and Iraq.
He claims to have never said it, but he also claims a lot of things that are not true.
The verse about snake handling and drinking poison was added later, apparently. It's not even in the original text, it was an interpolation.
Oh, it probably comes from the King James version then, which I don't know why I don't know why so many fundamentalists are caught up in a very poor translation, but there they are.
It's the Pentecostals who did the snake handling.
Oh, Mongoose doesn't like me. Oh, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
You're not. Well, he's not an Indian. He's a Native American. That's very different.
Boom! Yeah, Mongo's hurt my feeler.
What the hell is this argument?
Beats the hell out of me.
Oh, Mongo's Rule is an opinionated asshole sock account, so he literally just logged on to a different account to yell at you.
Yeah, like I give a half a nano fuck.
Oh, you really should. It's just amusing. You should feel awesome that somebody felt the need to log on to a different account so that they can yell at you and pretend to be two people at once.
Yeah. I ain't too worried about it, you know. Idiots are going to do what they do.
I'm not saying worry about it. I'm just saying bask in the fact that someone wants to yell at you with two voices.
I ain't gonna take it one way or the other.
I'm trying to figure out what it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, if opinionated asshole wants to believe that Iran and Iraq are part of a continent that they're not part of, that's his thing. You know,
Well, he could come in and discuss it.
And if he wants to be wrong, that's his right. Pardon the expression.
I'm still trying to figure out exactly what opinionated asshole is claiming here. Is he trying to say that Sumerians are black? Is he trying to say that Africa and Asia are the same place? I'm very confused by this. I really wish I had caught the beginning of it. And then we got to fight the deception.
All right, I'm gonna double check something here.
Well, asshole, how far back are you going for Sumerians being black? Because you're gonna have to you're gonna have to come down to original people. You're gonna have to come down to where the split happened and when we got the Semitic skin coloration.
I'm guessing what he may refer to is Sumerians refer to themselves as blackheads, but that's not exactly the same as the skin color being black.
Yep. Now, skin color side, it didn't really matter that much. People back then were more interested in not starving to death than trying to classify each other by the color of their skin.
Well, I'm searching for instances of Iraq and Africa occurring in the same page in Wikipedia, and I haven't seen it yet.
You know, Shells, maybe if you look up Globe, it'll have the same two names in the globe.
Adam Mall in the chat, is asshole a Hotep? God, I hope so. Hoteps are some of the funniest pseudoscience idiots on the internet. And for anyone who wants a good breakdown on the funniest one, go to Jeff Holiday and look up the White Buffalo video about Yada. That that little guy will have you crying laughing the entire time.
Here.
All right.
I think Jose's going live. I'll probably not follow him because I know you guys do. Some of you guys do those after shows, but I'll probably be on like around 11, 12 West Coast time. Yeah, it's about that. And basically, I'm gonna look more into this, to my question from a long time ago, and I got some more clips of how flat Earth isn't helping themselves, basically.
Yeah, I'll let Mongo's / opinionated asshole continue to rage. This is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny to follow him. He clearly said that Iraq was in Africa, and now he's trying to backpedal and say he never said that.
Classic.
Yeah. Oh man, he's got his fourth new nickname.
Wait a minute. You're talking about Fight to
What's
Deception?
that?
No, I'm talking about Don't Take Any Wooden Nickels.
Okay,
That's Minded Manny, aka Manny,
Oh, is
aka Admiral Manny.
I didn't know that. I call him Militant Manny because he used to be all calm and now he's just angry all the fucking time.
I mean, we all have that point.
Alrighty. So anybody got one last thing to say?
Nope. Other than I'm gonna correct some. Tomorrow if you have a show, I'm gonna come on and correct some math because I said a couple of things wrong tonight, and I don't have the brain power to fix them right now.
No worries. Okay. Definitely be on. You definitely have the floor. Patreons, Ori.
Nah, ain't got much to say other than, while it was pretty low key, it was still had its amusing moments.
Yep. Not all conversations are going to be riveting and mind blowing. Sorry, people. Doesn't happen.
I actually have a question to ask, Sean.
Hey, what's up?
I pasted a link in your YouTube channel. It was a talk with Leonard Susskind. Did you watch that?
It was a while ago, right?
Yeah, a bit ago.
Yeah. I watched it. It was
Yeah, you might wanna check out that channel. That's actually a guy who has a podcast about AI, but he sometimes has these physics guys in and he talks about physics sometimes. So he has some other good videos on that as well.
Yeah, the host of this he's weird, but he's kind of normal. But he's weird. But
weird but normal.
Yeah, I watched it. But yeah, that guy does like a lot of AI stuff, like streaming.
Yeah, he does. He has. Yeah.
I'm trying to find the link.
Yeah, he had Eric Weinstein in, and that was a really good episode as well. So if you like that, you might wanna check that out too.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you sharing that too.
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I'm actually in my history looking for it right now. If I can find it in time, I'll share it in the chat.
And don't forget that YouTube channel I mentioned earlier. It's called Because Science.
Yes.
Because Science. It's a very good channel. I highly recommend it.
And if you want to read some ridiculous hypotheticals, xckd.com.
I've got IFTTT feeding it into Push Bullet.
Yeah,
so
and
as soon as they go up, I get a notification.
All right.
Yeah, and Sean, I'm gonna head over to the beach probably in about an hour and try to see if I can get a good shot of the stars. And then I'll also try to get one of sunrise as well.
Oh, very cool.
When you're doing the stars, make sure you remember the direction you face. Because I think I'm about to
Oh,
go
yeah.
outside. I'm about to go outside and smoke a cigarette, and I'll do the same.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be facing east.
Did I time
Face
coming
east.
back badly here?
No, you actually timed it perfectly because doing closing remarks or say your last breath. I don't even know what to call it.
Final thoughts.
Whatever. Yeah. Those things.
Tell your last truth.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yep.
Oh, you did time it well. Okay, well, in that case, thanks, Sean, very much for the forum. And the Earth is not flat, as far as I can tell. If someone has anything, any information to the contrary, I'm willing to look at it.
Teehee.
That's basically it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Again,
Thank
guys. And from the panel and the chat, I apologize. It wasn't the most entertaining live stream in sports entertainment television.
It wasn't a raging shit show.
yeah. Could have gone so worse though. Like I said, tomorrow I'll be on it, more structured. I actually know what I want to talk about. I have it ready actually, but I hadn't gone live today, and I felt like, hey, why not? So I do appreciate you guys still being here, even though we didn't get into anything too insanely deep. We did hang out, so I'm cool. With that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Click this little button right here, out of here, and they're gone. And then I'm gonna go click this one. And yeah, guys. Again, thank you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.